Hey folks, welcome back to my channel, Relationship Haven. In today's story, OP found out his wife cheated on him with a guy that is nothing like OP. The guy's broke, has a restraining order against him, and still lives with his parents at 42 years old. Now, she claims she wants to reconcile. In today's second story, OP found out his wife cheated on him with her adopted brother. Now, let's get into today's stories to find out what happened. I'm contemplating divorcing my wife of 16 years and mother to my 4-year-old son. In January, she revealed she had been having an emotional affair which began 6 months earlier. She had just broken things off. I was in shock hearing this. I thought we had had a loving relationship and a wonderful life together. Things weren't perfect, but overall there was a lot to be happy about. We both had rewarding careers, a child we completely adored, and a beautiful home. I saw us as best friends, and there was no one I would have rather spent time with. However, it's fair to say that the degree of intimacy in our relationship waned several years prior to our son's birth, starting with a long bout of infertility and continuing after we conceived our son through IVF. Infertility and being a new parent took its toll. We struggled for 9 months raising a baby who suffered from severe colic. One time, our baby was screaming so loud that a neighbor called the police to do a welfare check. It was rough. The colic subsided, but bedtime still seemed never-ending. It was only very recently that our son moved out of our bedroom to start sleeping in his own room. I don't think the word exhaustion does justice to the feelings we've mutually experienced. In my mind, there were challenges of parenthood, ones we shared equally. When my wife expressed worry about the lack of intimacy in our life, I knew on the one hand that she was right, though I didn't know how to change things. On the other hand, it seemed like the demands of being a new parent offered a reasonable explanation. I also believed that intimacy was something that could or would ebb and flow, more the former in those early trying years. My wife didn't feel the same way. I think she saw our lack of intimacy as a failing in our relationship and was deeply unhappy about it, more so than she was willing to admit. Then she met her affair partner and was somehow awakened to the true depth of this void in her life. We started seeing a couples therapist in the fall. Unbeknownst to me, her affair was playing out in parallel. I felt a deep distrust after learning about my wife's emotional affair, and small details nagged at me. Was this exclusively an emotional affair, or did more happen? What was the extent of their relationship, and how meaningful was it to her? Over the course of several months, I uncovered many details that weren't really volunteered, or rather, I was able to dig up information through my own investigative efforts. For example, data recovery, monitor emails, checking browser history, and so on. With each new detail came a new revelation, and I learned that much more had happened than I was first led to believe. My wife went out of town on 3 overnight trips during the past fall and winter. Each time I gave her my encouragement. She was leaving to work on writing projects, or go snowshoeing with friends, and I believed these were activities to be nourished. I stayed home and took care of our son. Later, I learned that she met up with her affair partner on every single trip. I learned that they had exchanged sexually explicit pictures and videos. Unfortunately, I saw some of this material too. I learned that they had sex on many occasions. They told each other, "I love you." At some point, they envisioned a future together, but needed to be patient while biding their time. However, in January, my wife decided to break it off with her affair partner. Things did not go well. She was on the receiving end of abusive and threatening text messages. My wife became very controlling with regard to her affair partner. I was urged to block his phone number and email address and Instagram account so that he could not try to contact me. I was made to feel that he was a mentally unstable individual, an unpredictable person that and we should be afraid of. I started sleeping in my son's room, which is on the main floor. I wanted to be sure I would hear if he tried to break in. He would drive by in the middle of the night and throw bags of things on our lawn. The police were called. Unfortunately, that's not where things ended. We continued to go to therapy, which shifted its focus to the affair. However, my wife was unable and unwilling to completely sever contact with her affair partner. They continued to text. He bought her a Valentine's Day gift. She bought him a birthday present. They continued to see each other. They were still intimate with one another. One day, I slipped my phone into our car, turned the GPS on, and watched her drive to his house and stay there for 2 hours. It's hard to grapple with all the things I've dealt with, and it's hard to reconcile how my wife could allow herself to be in such a toxic relationship. Her affair partner is the polar opposite of me. He's unstable, broke, and lives with his parents. He's 42 years old. His ex-partner has a protection order against him, and he has only limited and supervised access to his own children. I don't know what to say. I love or loved my wife. I love our family. This is not what I wanted. OP, here are my thoughts on the situation. You are aware of what has happened. You need to gather evidence and talk with a lawyer about your options. You do realize that as your wayward wife continues this facade, you're putting your own child's safety and well-being at risk. She's checked out of this marriage, which you're hanging on to and using lies, deception, and gaslighting as a way to keep you as a doormat. Check your state laws as to reasons for divorce. If you live in a no-fault state, it may make things harder for you. If you do seek legal advice, have any visitation on the part of the wayward wife, stipulate no visitors of the opposite sex while having visitation since you already know the affair partner is mentally unstable. Let's see what the comments had to say about this situation. Krennic said, I know that you deeply love your wife and I'm very sorry that you are in this situation, but you are no longer just together with her. You are responsible for your son now as well for his mental and physical well-being. Where do you think your son will be when your wife wants to see her affair partner while she has to look after your son because you're at work or somewhere else? She needs to learn that she destroyed the bond you once had, that all trust and respect is lost. Not that you have to fight for her. She walked out. She betrayed you. If she wants this marriage to survive, then she has to fight, not you. It is your job to show her that you no longer tolerate her affair, her disrespect, and her selfish entitled behavior. Build up a bed in your son's room and sleep there. Ignore her presence at home unless it is about the kid. Stop going to marriage counseling. That is good for nothing for as long as she lies. Tell her that you will not even shake her hands before she meets with a doctor and gets tested for STDs now and in 3 months. Then do the most important step. Go to a lawyer, prepare the divorce papers, and serve her with divorce papers. Now let's get into today's second story. This is my first time posting, so please bear with me. This happened to me just a couple of days ago. Let me provide some background. I've been with my girlfriend for 1 year. She has 2 kids of her own. I myself have one. Our story starts way back in 8th grade. She was my first love. I moved to Los Angeles, which led to us separating, and of course people move on. Throughout the years we kept in touch here and there. I always knew I loved her and would from time to time think about her. Last October I reached out to her, and we began to reconnect. Shortly after we started dating. Last May we discovered she was pregnant. She is now 5 months along. Now to the present day. We now live together and have been preparing for the baby's arrival. Things had seemed to be going pretty well for the most part, but for the past couple of weeks I had noticed her acting very strange, especially in regard to her iPad, which is connected to her phone. So all photos, texts, and calls are registered to it as a result of having it synced. She's a hairstylist, so she would leave it at work in her locker or in her car. About a week ago, she asked me to watch the kids while she went out to work for a couple of hours. While at home, I heard her iPad going off, so I went ahead and checked to see what it was. The messages she received were from her older adopted brother. He was adopted at a very early age by her father before she was even born, from my understanding. The messages began neutral, nothing out of the ordinary, until the really awful stuff started to show. The messages led into lots of sexting and nudes being sent from her to him. They also planned days to meet up when she wouldn't have the kids with her so that they could have sex. However, this is where it gets confusing. Throughout the text messages she made excuses as to why she couldn't have sex, but could only hang out, even though she was clearly scheduling days to see him. A few hours later she arrived home, and I confronted her about the entire thing. Her response was that he took advantage of her a couple of years back while she was drunk, and from there it started to become a common consensual occurrence. She eventually put a stop to it, but recently it had started back up, and she had been trying to get him to stop pursuing her by sexting him and cutting it short because she didn't want to lose her brother. She also stressed that they haven't had sex recently, she just saw him 2 weeks ago. It all sounded like bullshit to me, so I packed up and left. I'm shocked. And now I've had doubts that the baby is even mine, because I can't believe anything she says. A part of me wants to understand and even go back to her for the baby's sake. I don't know what to do at this point. I'd appreciate any advice. OP, here are my thoughts on the situation. You need to get a paternity test ASAP and then also let her parents know what happened so she doesn't go around spinning the narrative. You also need to contact a lawyer and get an STD test. I wish you the best of luck with your situation, OP. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's stories.